Well, hey folks, James Craig has been found guilty of murdering his wife Angela by poisoning her to death. Now, moments after the verdict was read, the court moved swiftly to the sentencing phase. And what followed was a heart-wrenching series of victim impact statements from Angela's children and her siblings. Statements that were so powerful that they moved jurors to tears because, yes, some of the jurors slipped into the courtroom for the sentencing. In fact, I think 8 of the 12 jurors slipped in to see James Craig sentenced. And that left the convicted killer sobbing in his seat. But when he was given a chance to speak, perhaps even apologize, Craig stayed silent. Hey, welcome to Profiling Evil, and thanks so much for taking a moment. Hit that like and subscribe button as we get started. We're talking about the James Craig murder trial in Colorado and his conviction. He was just convicted of murdering his wife, Angela, and they immediately moved into the sentencing phase. It was after weeks of gut-wrenching testimony, graphic evidence, and silent tension that the jury finally spoke, convicting this guy of murder. Hey, please make sure you're hitting the like and subscribe button and share Profiling Evil with your friends. I really do appreciate it. It helps us grow, and we really like being a part of the true crime community with you. Now, James Craig is this dentist who concocted a horrifying plan to rid himself of his wife, Angela, but he was found guilty of first-degree murder. He'd poisoned her slowly, methodically, lacing her protein shakes with cyanide until her body gave out. But today, he got hammered. Let's listen.
Verdict form, count 1, murder in the first degree. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of murder in the first degree. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of solicitation to commit tampering with physical evidence. Verdict form, count 3, solicitation to commit tampering with physical evidence, Casey Bohannon. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of solicitation to commit tampering with physical evidence. Verdict form, count 4, solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree, William Walden. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree. Verdict form, count 5, solicitation to commit murder in the first degree, Nathaniel Harris. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of solicitation to commit murder in the first degree. Verdict form, count 6, solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree as to Cyanide Constantinidis. We, the jury, unanimously and beyond a reasonable doubt, find the defendant, James Craig, guilty of solicitation to commit perjury in the first degree. As to verdict form, count 7, manslaughter, cause or aid suicide, we, the jury, find the defendant, James Craig, not guilty of manslaughter, cause or aid suicide. Let me then turn to the foreperson and ask, is this the verdict of the jury?
Yes.
Do all of you agree with this verdict?
Yes.
And once again, as we get started, please take a moment, hit the like and subscribe button, and share Profiling Evil with your friends. And just like that, the trial shifted. No delays, no waiting. The judge moved swiftly into the sentencing phase, determined to give Angela's family their moment, their voice in a tragedy that had stolen so much from them. And what followed was incredibly raw. It was unfiltered. It was a day of reckoning. Craig's daughter, just 21 years old, stood before the court. She cracked it wide open with this heartbreaking statement. She said, quote, "I just want my mom." The child sobbed. She said, "I want more than anything to go home at the end of the day and just give her mother a hug." Well, as she spoke, James Craig, this same man who months earlier sat smugly, or actually years earlier, sat smugly in an exam room while his wife was dying, the same guy who scoured the web for undetected poisons, he collapsed into sobs. And I was left wondering, is this guy experiencing remorse for killing his wife? Was he feeling bad because he destroyed the lives of his children? Or was he finally realizing that the fantasy world that he created just slammed head on with reality? Craig leaned forward in his chair and he was visibly shaken. His attorney gave him that complimentary pat on the back, but let's not mistake this for remorse, not yet at least. You know, after that child spoke, Angela's sister got on, and she spoke to the court and then directly to Craig, saying, "For years, you planned and plotted and schemed, but you never could break her," speaking of Angela. She said that Angela was a picture of hope and kindness, qualities that Craig exploited and ultimately destroyed. Another sister followed her and called him what many people watching this case have come to believe. She called him flat out a pretender and a liar, a heartless coward, a snake in the grass. She described how Angela never stopped trying to love the man that she married, even as he betrayed her over and over again, and even as he plotted her death under the same roof that their children called home. Then Angela's brothers spoke. Now these are men who seem to be carrying a little bit of a burden of not recognizing the red flags in this case earlier, whether it could have made a difference or not. But they admitted that they had suspicions long before James was in handcuffs. One of the murdered woman's brothers recalled James coming down the stairs at the hospital and coming over and trying to hug him while Angela lay dying. He was blunt in the courtroom. He said he wasn't in a hugging mood, and he suspected Craig had something to do with Angela's sudden turn in her health. Another brother delivered this gut punch, saying that Angela believed that she could help James Craig overcome his demons, and in return, he killed her for it. And finally, James and Angela's son spoke. This young man was caught in this impossible web of grief and betrayal, and he summed it up with heartbreaking clarity when he said, "It's hard to lose your mom, and then 3 days later, lose your dad." But then he shifted his grief toward gratitude and actually thanked the judge while acknowledging the weight of this process on his siblings and himself. His words weren't polished, but they were real. They were raw, and they were reflective of complex emotional wreckage that his father had left behind in the wake. And then came Judge Whitaker, calm, composed, resolute. And after listening to nearly an hour of soul-bearing statements from Angela's family, some of which, again, were moving even the jurors to tears, the judge delivered the inevitable, and she sentenced James Craig to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, there was no surprise, no suspense in this sentence. Colorado law mandates it for first-degree murder convictions, but there was definitely weight. There was finality. There was justice. Not vengeance, but it was justice, delivered with the full gravity of the court. And how did James Craig respond? Well, here's where things get a little murky, in my opinion. Perhaps even psychological, because throughout the trial, James Craig projected arrogance. He didn't take the stand in his own defense. He didn't have one witness that they called to try to humanize him in some way. He watched as the prosecution led across witness after witness, almost 50 of them, talking about his secret affairs, his dark Google searches, his poisoning timeline, all laid bare, and he sat there and said nothing. But when his daughter stood up in the sentencing phase, when his family, the very people that he swore to protect as a father, only to later grievously wound, this is when the guy broke down. And I'm left scratching my head wondering why. Was it guilt? Perhaps it was regrets. Or more likely, it was the stark realization that his carefully constructed image had completely crumbled, that his facade was gone, and everyone knew there was a wolf under that sheep's clothing. Hey folks, it's Mike from Profiling Evil, and I wanted to take a moment to invite you to join me at CrimeCon Denver. It's in September, and you won't want to miss this. If you love true crime and you love hanging out with people that like true crime, you ought to come and enjoy the 6,000 plus people that come to CrimeCon and take part in this amazing event. And to make it a little easier, I've worked out a deal with CrimeCon to give you a special discount on your registration. So when you go to registration, make sure you enter the code word KING, K-I-N-G, my last name, and that'll get you a discount on CrimeCon. And I look forward to seeing you there. Hey, by the way, bring your books, and I'll make sure to sign them while we're there, and we'll get some pictures together. Hey, we'll see you soon at CrimeCon. This is a guy who has long presented himself as someone who thought he was smarter than everybody else in the room, or a wolf in sheep's clothing, a manipulator who flung lies, who threw spiritual charades, all while orchestrating a murder. A person who probably saw himself as untouchable, but today his delusions shattered. And here's the kicker. When he was given an opportunity to speak to his family, to speak to the court, a chance to maybe apologize or offer some semblance of humanity, James Craig declined. He said nothing, no explanation, no apology, just silence. And that speaks volumes. But it didn't speak as loudly as the judge when she remanded him to the custody of the Colorado Department of Corrections. And as the handcuffs went on James Craig with finality, some of the people in the courtroom had to have sighed a breath of relief. Angela Craig's family stood tall today. They showed the world who she really was. She wasn't a victim in the way James wanted her to be remembered, but she was a fighter, a lover of people, her children. She was a mother, a sister, a peacemaker. And James Craig, he's just plain guilty, and he's a murderer. And the courtroom saw his final act. A man broken by the weight of his crimes, but still too proud, or maybe too cold, to speak a word when it mattered most. Angela Craig's voice was stolen by her husband, but today her family spoke with power, clarity, and conviction, and justice answered the call. And I hope you'll drop your thoughts in the comments section down below, because I'd love to hear your take on this case. And don't be shy about jumping into other people's conversations. But please, as always, remember, keep it kind and constructive. And thanks for watching Profiling Evil. I really do appreciate your support. And I hope you'll follow along with us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. That way you can get updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes content. And make sure if you go to profilingevil.com, you sign up for our digital newsletter, the BOLO. It stands for Be on the Lookout, and the only way you're going to get the digital newsletter with the additional content is by signing up at profilingevil.com. And folks, if you like audio podcasts, make sure you're subscribed to Profiling Evil podcasts on your favorite podcast platform. We just dropped our 250th podcast, and we're so excited about the growth we've experienced on the audio side. And if you're hungry for even more true crime, head over to the website, profilingevil.com, and check out the story maps. And again, the exclusive content. And if books are your thing, check out my books. Deceived, an investigative memoir of the Zion Society cult, is a book where I talk and walk you through one of the most disturbing cults in American history. Or you might want to dive into She Knew No Fear, the story of my great-great-grandmother who was murdered 134 years ago last week. You'll learn about how I solved that murder a century later. And again, since James Craig is a textbook example of wolves in sheep's clothing, order my newest book. This is one that I wrote especially for you, the true crime enthusiast. It's called Wolves in Sheep's Clothing, and you can find it worldwide on Amazon. Or if you live in the United States, folks, you can order it through Profiling Evil, and I'll sign that thing, and I'll deliver it for free. So thanks for being a part of Profiling Evil. We'll see you soon at the next crime scene.